this meeting agenda, we will discuss policies and procedures, pathogens and the spread of diseases, general principles when using any type of transportation to avoid contamination, minimizing the spread in the vehicles, face coverings, facilitating the distancing of passengers, general procedures for employees, and general procedures for passengers. For those who just joined us, welcome to the meeting. Now, without further ado, we'll turn the time over to our presenter. I'll let Heather introduce herself and we can start the presentation. Carry on, Heather.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Heather Peralta. I will be your instructor for today. A little about myself. I am a lead Article 9 and prevention and support instructor for the state of Arizona. I have been supporting folks who have developmental disabilities now for 20 years. I have worked for Gompers for 16 of those years. Now, what I do at Gompers is I organize and facilitate learning and development of the knowledge, skills, and abilities to support people who have developmental disabilities and to provide the staff a greater understanding of their responsibilities within their role and in turn build their confidence and maintain safety. There are 13 classes that I teach for Gompers to assist with staff development, including things like introduction to special needs, seizure management, CPR, first aid, activities of daily living, transporting passengers with special needs, etc. In today's training, I will be discussing the best practices on how drivers can be diligent in their efforts to slow the spread of germs while providing the best service to your passengers. So let's go ahead and get started with the policy and procedures. In efforts to guide employees that transport passengers during these uncertain times and help ensure their health and safety as they help operate businesses, proper training is essential. These policies and procedures are intended to assist in reducing the chance that infectious disease will be transmitted on its premises. While no precautions can fully eliminate the risk of disease transmission, these procedures are designed to create a healthier environment and provide key guidance. There's only so much that people can do to prevent germs since there are literally billions of invisible germs accompanying our daily commute. That's why implementing every available defense tactic should be a top priority when traveling on public transit. Being well informed about the spread of infectious disease can allow employees and passengers to take care of themselves and to be diligent in their efforts to slow the spread. Many organisms, they live in and on our bodies. They're normally harmless or even helpful, but under certain circumstances, some organisms may cause disease. Some infectious disease can be passed from person to person. So I am going to be discussing some of the general information about some of these pathogens in this training today. Pathogens and the spread of disease. What are pathogens? Well, a pathogen is simply defined as an organism that has the potential to cause infectious disease in its host. Pathogens can make us sick, but when healthy, our bodies can defend against pathogens and the illness that they cause. Pathogens can be transmitted a few ways depending on the type. They can be spread through skin contact, bodily fluids, airborne particles, contact with feces, and touching a surface touched by the infected person. Now, the best way to prevent infections is to limit the spread of pathogens. This would include things like disinfecting areas regularly, but we will be discussing more about minimizing the spread here in this training. There are different types of pathogens, but we are only going to be focusing on two of the most common types, viruses and bacteria. What is a virus? A virus is a microscopic organism that invades living cells in order to reproduce. Viruses are capable of latching onto host cells and getting inside them. Once you're infected, they use the components of the host cell to replicate, producing more viruses. Viruses can cause several infections, many of which are contagious. So we're going to go over a few examples of viral disease. So the first one we're going to talk about is the common cold. What that is a viral infectious disease of the upper respiratory tract that primarily affects the nose, the throat, sinus, and the larynx. Common signs and symptoms may include coughing, sore throat, runny nose, sneezing, headache, fever. People usually recover in 7 to 10 days, but some symptoms may last up to 3 weeks. The common cold is typically spread through the air during close contact with infected people or indirectly through contact with objects in the environment, followed by transfer to the mouth or the nose. Now, there is no vaccination for the common cold. The primary method of prevention is hand washing, not touching the eyes, nose, or mouth with unwashed hands, and staying away from people who are sick. Some evidence supports the use of face masks in minimizing the spread as well. The flu. That's a contagious respiratory illness caused by influenza viruses that infect the nose, throat, and sometimes the lungs. The symptoms of influenza are similar to those of a cold, although usually more severe and less likely to include a runny nose. Flu vaccinations are available each year. The next one is chickenpox. Now, what this is an airborne disease that is easily spread from one person to the next through coughs and sneezes of an infected person. Chickenpox can cause itchy, blister-like rash. The rash first appears on the chest, the back, and the face, and then spreads over the entire body, causing between 250 to 500 itchy blisters. It may also spread through contact with the blisters as well. Now, there are 2 chickenpox vaccines that are licensed in the United States, and they are there at the bottom of the screen for you there. Another example of viral disease include hepatitis. Now, I'm only going to discuss hepatitis A because unlike hepatitis B and C, Hep A is very contagious and easily spread. Hepatitis A is a vaccine-preventable liver infection caused by the hepatitis A virus. Hepatitis A is found mostly in the stool and blood of people who are infected. Now, hepatitis A is spread when someone unknowingly ingests the virus, even in microscopic amounts or through close personal contact with an infected person. An infected person's hands can become contaminated after using the toilet and then spreads by direct contact or by food, beverages, and other objects that were handled by the infected person. Some symptoms of hepatitis A can last up to 2 months and include fatigue, nausea, stomach pain, and jaundice. Most people with hepatitis A, they do not have long-lasting illness, but in rare cases, it can lead to serious problems, especially in the elderly and people who have compromised immune systems. Vaccinations are available and are given in 2 doses 6 months apart. Although no medicine can treat HAV symptoms after they develop, the hepatitis A vaccine is the most effective means of preventing the hepatitis A infection. The last virus that we're going to discuss are coronavirus. Now, this is a kind of common virus that causes infection in your nose, sinus, or upper throat. These viruses include, but are not limited to, SARS, MERS, and COVID-19. Coronaviruses, they're not new to us. There are many types of coronaviruses that can present with respiratory or gastrointestinal symptoms in animals and in humans. Coronaviruses can cause respiratory infections ranging from the common cold to more severe disease. Now, looking back at 2003, there was a severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, which was SARS. Then in 2012, there was the Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus, which was MERS. Now, SARS-CoV-2, this is the name of the virus that causes COVID-19. This was first reported in December of 2019. Using what we know from other respiratory viruses, the disease can spread from person to person through Droplets. An infected person releases those droplets through coughing, sneezing, and talking when close to another person. It can spread when infected droplets land on objects, and then when another person touches those objects and then touches their nose, mouth, or eyes. There can be a range of symptoms from very mild to severe. Some people may not develop symptoms at all, but are still carriers of the virus and can spread it to others. Common symptoms can include fever, fatigue, cough, chills, muscle pain, sore throat, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, new loss or taste of smell, congestion or runny nose, nausea or vomiting, and diarrhea. Now, this list is not all possible symptoms. Definitely, you want to call your medical provider for any other symptoms that are severe or are concerning to you. Now, in more severe cases, there could be pneumonia, organ failure, and sometimes death. Per the CDC, there are 3 vaccinations that are authorized and recommended in the United States to prevent the spread of COVID-19, which are here on this slide for you guys, the Pfizer, Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson. The second pathogen that we're going to discuss is bacteria. Now, bacteria are single-celled microorganisms that live almost everywhere. They can reproduce on their own and can survive in different environments, including extreme heat and cold, radioactive waste, and in the human body. Not all bacteria cause infections. Those that can are called pathogenic bacteria. Bacteria are more complex organisms than viruses. They don't need a living host to thrive or reproduce. Bacteria can be beneficial as well as harmful. So we're going to go ahead and talk about beneficial bacteria. Beneficial bacteria can be found in dairy products like milk and yogurt. We also carry bacteria in our gut, which helps digest food, absorb nutrients, destroy disease-causing organisms, and they produce several vitamins in the intestinal tract, including folic acid and vitamins B6 and B12. Next, we will discuss some examples of harmful bacteria. Harmful bacteria produce toxins which could make you fall ill. Bacteria can cause infections like tuberculosis. This is an infectious disease that spreads through the air from person to person. Now, the TB bacteria is put into the air when a person with active TB disease of the lungs or throat coughs, sneezes, speaks, or sings. People nearby may breathe in these bacteria and become infected. TB disease in the lungs may cause symptoms such as a bad cough that lasts 3 weeks or longer, pain in the chest, coughing up blood or sputum, weakness or fatigue, weight loss, chills, fever, sweating at night, and no appetite. Now, in countries with high rates of TB infection, infants are often given the TB vaccination, but doctors in the US don't generally recommend it because TB isn't a widespread problem here. Still, healthcare providers who work or spend a lot of time around TB patients might benefit from the vaccination. Another example of harmful bacteria is strep throat. What that is a bacterial infection of the throat and the tonsils caused by a bacteria called Group A streptococcus. Group A strep live in the nose and in the throat and can easily spread to other people. In general, strep throat is a mild infection, but it can be very painful. It can make your throat feel sore and scratchy. The most common symptom of strep throat include sore throat that can start very quickly, pain when swallowing, fever, red and swollen tonsils. Sometimes they may have white patches or streaks of pus, tiny red spots, and swollen lymph nodes in the front of the neck. Strep throat, it is contagious. People can get sick if they breathe in the droplets of an infected person, touch something with droplets on it, and then touch their nose or their mouth, or drink from the same glass or eat from the same plate as the same person who has strep throat. Now, these harmful bacteria are the reason why we disinfect our hands and wipe down our kitchen and bathroom sinks, as well as any other place where germs tend to congregate. They also have developed a wide range of antibiotics, which are drugs designed to kill the bacteria that cause disease. Treatments are available for many of the illnesses that are caused by the different types of pathogens. There is also symptom relief for those that can't be treated, such as some of the viral infections. So some things like Tylenol, Dayquil, Theraflu, things like that are the most common symptom relief medications that are used. Okay, general principles when using any type of transportation to avoid contamination. Here are some tips from infectious disease specialists that you can take to avoid pathogens, also referred to as germs, from entering the body on the vehicle. The first one we're going to talk about here is wash your hands. Though this one seems obvious, a 2018 study by the U.S. Department of Agriculture found that out of 182 people, only 33% of individuals washed their hands when necessary, and only 2% of those hand washers checked off all of the boxes recommended for safe and effective hand washing by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. This means there's likely room for improvement. Even those people who feel confident in their hand washing abilities, here are the 5 steps of hand washing recommended by the CDC for an effective clean. So you want to thoroughly wet your hands with clean water, then turn off the water tap and apply soap. Lather hands with soap completely, back of hands, between fingers, and under nails. It is recommended to have a nail brush, maybe like once or twice a day, just going and kind of going underneath the nails there. If you don't have a nail brush, you can also kind of scratch with the soapy water just to kind of get some soap in between there to scrub. Scrub hands for a minimum of 20 seconds. Rinse hands with clean running water, and then of course dry your hands with a clean towel or an air dryer, then turn off the water by using a paper towel if it's available. Good rule of thumb: before you leave to get into a vehicle, wash your hands with soap and water, and then again once you arrive at your destination or as soon as possible. For instances without easy access to a sink, hand sanitizer is also a viable option. It's not a replacement for hand washing, but it is better than doing nothing. So let's talk about those hand sanitizers. Oh, you were right the first time. Just keep it on that one, please. The hand sanitizer. Beautiful. All right, so you want to definitely keep hand sanitizers handy. Formula with 60% alcohol content is best. Using hand sanitizer regularly is very easy for us to do to help stop the spread of germs. Always read and follow the directions on the label to ensure safe and effective use. We know that soap and water rinses away germs and dirt, but it also strips the natural protective oils in your skin, causing it to dry out. And as a result, fine cracks may appear, which are entry points for infection. Now, that's soap and water. Hand sanitizer contains a high percentage of alcohol, which will dry out your hands quicker. So it is recommended to use a hand cream in between washing to soothe and nourish your skin while locking in that moisture to keep it intact. Okay, tip number 3, don't touch your face. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth before washing your hands, because that's how those nasty viruses get in. You also want to avoid touching surfaces. Limit touching frequently touched surfaces such as door frames, handles, windows, seats, and other vehicle parts. Things like kiosks, digital interfaces such as touchscreens and fingerprint scanners, ticket machines, turnstiles, handrails, restroom surfaces, elevator buttons, and benches as much as possible. You may choose to carry a tissue with you to hold on to poles and railings, and just make sure to discard that tissue in an enclosed trash bin. When applicable, use touchless payment and no-touch trash cans and doors when available. Exchange cash or credit cards by placing them on a receipt tray or on the counter rather than by hand, excuse me, if possible. Avoid accepting offers of free water bottles and avoid touching magazines or other items that may be provided free to passengers. The next one, do a seat check. Before sitting down, don't sit in a seat that is visibly soiled. If you have an assigned seat, call the transportation attendant and ask to be moved. Number 6, don't eat or drink on public transit. If you remember tip number 3, don't touch your face. If you're eating or drinking, there is a high chance that you will touch your face. Now, if a virus or bacteria are on your hands and you touch your food before washing, the bacteria may transfer to the food and then be ingested. Number 7, if someone coughs or sneezes, move away from them. Sometimes there is a bright side to someone showing physical signs of illness on public transportation. It visibly indicates the presence of germs and gives the people around them a heads up to steer clear. It's not the air expelled during a sneeze that spreads germs, but rather the small droplets that travel within it. These nasal and oral secretions can travel up to 6 feet. So being near someone who is actively sneezing or coughing can be a fast way to contract a cold, flu, or other illness. The safest bet is to move far away from anyone showing obvious signs of illness like coughing or sneezing. Now, if escaping the path of someone's cough or sneeze isn't an option, respectfully kind of pivot to the opposite direction, being sure to face away from the trajectory of the cough or the sneeze. The important thing here is just to not be downwind of the sneeze or the cough. Number 8, sanitize your bag and keep it off the floor. I've also added a few cell phone recommendations as well. Now, public transportation vehicles, restrooms, and restaurants are teeming with germs. Purses and backpacks easily become vessels for carrying bacteria into your home. So you want to hold on to your bag and keep it off the ground as much as possible. As far as cell phones, if a mobile phone isn't exactly an extension of the human hand, it should be treated like one. Your phone, like your hand, is a bacteria and virus magnet. A phone may fall onto a bathroom floor, come in contact with tiny droplets from sneezes and coughs, and encounter every type of germ a person's hand does. So you want to keep the screen and frame on your phone as clean as possible. Use an antibacterial wipe to disinfect the device and wash your hands with soap and water after touching the phone. Please note, you should never use Clorox or Lysol wipes on your phone screen to rid it of germs or viruses. Cell phone sanitizer wipes are recommended. Number 9, cover your face. Face coverings are now required to board most buses and public transportation. The evidence is clear that wearing a mask helps prevent the spread of germs and is especially important in public settings. Number 10, cover your coughs and sneezes. When not wearing a mask, cover your cough and sneezes with a tissue or use the inside of your elbow. Throw the used tissue in the trash and wash your hands immediately with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, or use a hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. You definitely want to avoid spitting or clearing the nasal passages in public. Number 11, have adequate supplies. Before traveling, pack sanitizing wipes, hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol in case you are unable to wash your hands at your destination. Bring your mask to wear at times when physical distancing is difficult. For example, when you're riding on a van or bus or waiting at a rest stop or riding in a car with people outside your household. Number 12, stay home when appropriate. People who are sick should avoid using transportation options that may put them in close contact with others during public transit and should stay home except to seek medical care. Close contact is defined as anyone who is within 6 feet of an infected person for a cumulative time of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period. For non-emergency medical care, make an appointment ahead of time, and if using public transportation, try to travel during non-peak hours if possible. Okay, minimizing the spread in the vehicle. We're going to talk a little bit here about the driver responsibility. Responsibility for disinfection. The drivers will be responsible for ensuring that all high-touch surfaces in the vehicle is disinfected. For a vehicle performing a single route, before picking up passengers in the morning, the assigned driver will perform this wipe down, and it will be repeated before picking up passengers for the return trip home. For vehicles performing multiple routes, vehicles should be disinfected before the first route in the morning and in between routes prior to the next group of passengers who are picked up. Next, we will talk about surfaces that will be disinfected. Really, any high-touch surface needs to be disinfected. These surfaces can include interior and exterior door handles, the steering wheel, dashboard, center console, the shift lever, seatbelt buckles, switches, heat and cooling controls, the keys, grab handles, seat adjustment handles, and any applicable gate opener if it is on the vehicle, also known as the lift. Okay, how to disinfect. Not only do we wear gloves when dealing with bodily fluid, we also want to wear gloves to protect ourselves against bacteria while cleaning. So you want to wear disposable gloves. Drivers should wipe down every surface with an alcohol-based wipe, a spray containing at least 60% alcohol, or an EPA-approved disinfectant. Gloves should be removed carefully to avoid contamination of the wearer. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Always wash immediately or apply hand sanitizer after removing the gloves, even if the gloves look to be intact. Now, the first rule of thumb when it comes to gloves is you want to make sure that you have gloves that fit. If you've ever tried on a pair of gloves that are ripping or hard to get them on, they're too small. Or if you've ever tried to put on gloves that when you put your hands down, the glove kind of falls off your hand, they're too big. So just make sure that you have the right size gloves in the vehicle that you will be using. Real quick, I'm just going to go over glove removal with you guys. So let me go ahead and just put these on real quick. The main point to keep in mind when you are removing your gloves is just don't let your bare hand touch the outside of the gloves. I mean, that's the golden rule, okay? Now, there's different ways that you can remove these. Some folks go in the middle and they pinch the middle of the glove and they pull it off that way. Me personally, I tend to just grab the fingers just like this, and then I pull it off. Now what I do is I kind of ball it up. You guys can see that. I ball it up just like this. Now, taking my index finger, I go in on the inside of the glove. I don't want to touch the outside because I don't know what that just was. I go in on the inside and I remove it. Now I'm just touching the inside of the glove. And I'll just go ahead and, throw this in the appropriate trash bin. Okay, we just want to make sure we're not touching the outside with our bare hand. Okay. Now, as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to surge in the United States, CDC is implementing provisions of President Biden's executive order on promoting COVID-19 safety. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about face coverings. Okay. CDC has issued an order that requires face masks to be worn by all travelers while awaiting, boarding, disembarking, and for the duration of travel on public transportation, which includes all passengers, drivers, and crew. Wearing a face mask will help prevent the spread of infection. Because it is possible to have a virus like COVID-19 without showing symptoms, it is best to wear a face covering even if you feel healthy. A mask helps to contain those small droplets that come out of your mouth and nose when you talk, sneeze, or cough. If you have a virus and are not showing symptoms, the face mask reduces your chance of spreading the infection to others. If you're healthy, a mask may protect you from larger droplets from people around you. So next up, we're going to go ahead and talk about some things to keep in mind regarding the face masks. You want to have a spare mask on hand. And the reason for this is if the current one becomes wet or dirty from sweat, saliva, makeup, or other liquids or substances, you want to have a spare on hand. You want to keep the soiled mask in a sealed plastic bag until you can wash it. Wash wet or dirty masks as soon as possible to prevent them from becoming moldy. Wet masks can be hard to breathe through and are less effective than dry masks. Carolyn Fort, who is the director of Good Housekeeping Institute Cleaning Lab, suggests that all face masks should be washed with hot water in the washing machine and tumbled dry on a high heat. More delicate masks that are hand sewn may need to be washed by hand. If so, lather masks with soap and scrub them for at least 20 seconds with warm water or even hot water before tossing it in the dryer. While there are some other cleaning methods floating around the internet that suggest sanitizing face masks by sticking them in the microwave, the oven, or a pot of boiling water, Fort does not recommend them since they're nowhere near as effective as the standard washing and drying. All disposable face coverings should be thrown out after use. If you wear glasses, I know this has been a struggle for some of us. Sometimes they start to fog up. You definitely want to find a mask that fits closely over your nose and has either a nose wire to help to reduce that fogging. But they also make a couple things. Anti-fogging spray has also been made now for eyeglasses. And I'm going to try to show you this here. This here is one of those wires that I was talking about. Now, on some of the disposable face masks, they don't have that wire, or even on your, let me grab one right here. Even on your cloth face masks, like for example, this one here, I don't have that wire to kind of pinch on my nose. So what I did was I went online and I found out who was selling these little wires. They've got an adhesive on the back of it, so you can actually just stick it to the inside of the mask or the outside of the mask if you want to feel fashionable. And they actually bend to, attached to your nose here to where it'll prevent it from slipping. So that's just a little extra information for you. You can find these like on Amazon, places like that. Okay. Let's see here. Provide information to people purchasing tickets or otherwise booking transportation in advance or on the day of departure about the need to wear a mask in the vehicle, and that failure to comply will result in denial of boarding. Drivers should provide this information again the time of boarding. Board only those who are wearing appropriate masks. Monitor the vehicle for any person who does not wear a mask and seek compliance from such person. Have masks available for those passengers who do not have one. Wear a mask in public settings and when around people who do not live in your household, especially when social distancing is difficult. Masks should not be placed on babies and children younger than 2 years old, anyone who has trouble breathing or is unconscious, a person with written instructions from a licensed medical provider to not wear a mask, anyone who is incapacitated or otherwise unable to remove the mask without assistance. If unable to wear a mask due to a medical reason, a face shield can be used for a passenger. However, let me grab one of those for you real quick. This is what the face shield looks like. It just goes, there's different types of them, but this is the one that I have here. It's just the shield that covers the face. Now, the face shield is primarily used for eye protection for the person wearing it. At this time, it's not known what level of protection a face shield provides to people nearby from the spray of respiratory droplets from the wearer. There is currently just not enough evidence to support the effectiveness of face shields for source control. Therefore, CDC does not currently recommend the use of face shields as a substitute for masks. This is going to be up to the agency's discretion. Okay, how the face mask should be worn. First off, you want to wash your hands or use hand sanitizer before touching your mask. Remove the mask from the dispenser or box by touching the ear loops or strap to make sure the mask does not have any holes or tears. So when we do grab our mask, it is important that we grab it by the ear loops. We just don't want to touch the inside or the outside of the mask. Make sure you determine which side is the top and which side is the inside and outside of the mask so you properly wear the mask. So most of the disposable masks, like the one that I have here, it's going to have a darker side and a lighter side. Even the blue masks that we see, it does have a shade lighter on the inside of the mask. So we just want to make sure that the lighter side is what we're putting here on our face, okay? And the darker side will be on the outside, okay? I mean, for some of the masks, it could be a little obvious what is going to be the front and the back, but again, usually it's going to have that lighter side. You want to put the mask over your nose and mouth and secure it under your chin. Fit the mask snugly against the side of your face, slipping the loops over your ears, or you may tie the strings behind your head, depending on the type of mask that you have. If you have to continually adjust your mask, it doesn't fit properly, and you might need to find a different mask or type of brand, or like I said, even that little wire that kind of helps to secure it a little bit easier. Okay, so real quick, what I'm going to do is just a little demo on how to correctly wear the face mask, because I know especially in public settings we do see different types of mask wearers out there. So the person here, okay, you're going to put it here on your ears just like so. Okay, now you may have to grab onto the top and the bottom of the mask just to kind of get it secure and make sure that it is comfortable on your face. Okay, I'm covering the nose, the mouth, and the chin. This is the proper way to wear the face covering. Now, like I said, in public settings, we do see different types of mask wearers. So you may see the person who is wearing it underneath their nose, like so. You've got people, I call them, you know, the little chin wearers. You have something called ear loopers. You also have, like my 7-year-old son. You may wear it like this, okay? So we just want to make sure that we are wearing the mask properly. The SARS-CoV-2 virus, for example, lives in people's nasal passages. When an infected person inhales, they release viral particles from their nose into the air. And notice we're talking about basic exhale, not a cough or sneeze. The mask worn over the mouth and nose helps to keep these infectious particles from becoming airborne and reaching others. Okay, facilitating the distancing of passengers in the vehicle. The number of riders in a vehicle at any one time will be minimized and the space between them maximized. So here are some recommended arrangements in the vehicle. You want to have passengers sit as far possible from the driver, such as in the rear seat diagonally across from the driver. In larger vehicles, such as vans and buses, sit in the back of the seat, back of the bus, so you can remain at least 6 feet away from the driver. Passengers shall be seated as far from the driver as possible and as far from other individuals as well. For example, if the vehicle were to carry 6 passengers, these passengers would be sitting opposite one another in each row at the seating position near the window. Avoid having passengers sit directly in front of another passenger. We're kind of doing like a zigzag kind of thing. We want to minimize passengers sitting next to one another in these vehicles. Now, an exception can be made. Let's say it's a member and a rider staff, or if someone is living in the same household, for example, a guardian and a child. So those are those exceptions that can be made as far as sitting right next to one another. Okay. Now we're going to discuss some basic procedures while the vehicles are in transit. So the first thing we're going to discuss is protective attire. All drivers shall wear face coverings while passengers are in their vehicle, and passengers shall wear their face coverings as well. As mentioned earlier, it is recommended to have a supply of disposable masks on the vehicle to give to passengers who do not have one. Ventilation. Drivers will use the vehicle's non-recirculating air conditioning function to improve ventilation within the vehicle. And whenever possible and safe, and if the weather allows, open the window just to help recirculate that air. Vehicle supply kit. Each vehicle should have a kit stocked with hand sanitizers, disinfectant wipes, gloves, face shield, a no-touch thermometer, and the cleaning materials needed for daily use. Now, the kit that's shown here in the picture is actually the one that my agency is currently using. What I always remind the staff is if running low on supplies, please contact your supervisor before you run out. We just always want to make sure that we have supply just in case, okay? And you'll see also we have little water bottles in ours as well, okay? Fueling. When you drive, you're going to need to refuel. This means you'll have to use gas pumps and credit card keypads that other people have touched. So to protect yourself, it is recommended to carry a pair of disposable gloves in the vehicle. You can put them on before you pay or pump gas, or use a disinfectant wipe to clean off the pump handle and keypad. After you finish pumping gas, you want to wash your hands or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. General procedures for employees. Now, this section is going to set out the provisions that apply specifically to agency employees. Gompers has a COVID protocol that we will follow to maintain the health and safety of the staff and members that we support. Some of these procedures include keeping sick employees home. If any employee is displaying the symptoms of illness, they are not to come to work. They stay home. Temperature checks. Each day before an employee enters the work site, the employee must have their temperature taken. Employees with a temperature of 100.4 or higher will be sent home. Although an employee may check their temperature at home, if it is 100.4 or higher, they will just call their supervisor. If you do a check at home, we always say it will be checked again when they arrive here to work. Checking at home will just really save you a trip if you do have a fever. You'll just call the supervisor. We also have something here called the daily symptom screening questionnaire. Each employee will complete a daily questionnaire before entering the facility or the vehicle. This is done one or two ways. Some employees may choose to use the paper form at the site that they wish to enter, or we do have the link on our cell phones or iPads, and we can do it electronically. If an employee answers yes to any of these questions below, they will not be permitted to work. So those questions include, have you been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19 within 24 hours? Have you had a fever in the last 24 hours? Do you have any new cough, shortness of breath, chills, muscle aches, or diminished sense of taste or smell? And then my temperature is over 100.4. Now, if the employee answers yes to any of those questions, they will not be permitted to work. An employee may return to work after they receive a doctor's note clearing them to return. However, if an employee cannot timely obtain a doctor's note due to the doctor's unavailability, the employee may return after. These three things have to happen. They have no fever for 72 hours without the use of fever-reducing medication. 10 days have passed since their symptoms appeared, and any respiratory symptom have improved. Okay. General procedures for passengers. Again, these procedures are what Gompers is doing to minimize the spread of COVID-19. You will need to follow your own agency's policy. So one of the things that we do here is temperature checks for all of the individuals. The driver will maintain and use a no-touch thermometer to check the passenger's temperature before they enter the vehicle. If the passenger has a temperature of 100.4 or higher, they will not be permitted on the vehicle. We also do the daily symptom screening questionnaire for our individuals. The driver shall require that all passengers or their guardians on their behalf complete the daily screening questionnaire before a passenger enters the vehicle. The questions are the same as the employee questionnaire that were previously mentioned. If the passenger answers yes to any of the questions, they will not be permitted to ride. Okay. So this training that we just went over, it was designed to discuss the steps employees can take to minimize the spread of infectious disease while transporting passengers. Keep in mind, a virus such as COVID-19 is a new disease. What's known is rapidly evolving and might change in the future. So please keep yourself up to date by visiting the World Health Organization website, also known as the WHO, or the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, for the most accurate, up-to-date information about public health. I want to thank you guys for your time. I want to thank you for allowing me to share this information with you guys. I appreciate you guys being here. So thank you. It does conclude the training.
Thank you, Heather. That was a very informative training. I want to open up now for questions. If anybody has a question, you can either unmute yourself and ask the questions, or you can just put it in the chat box and we'll make sure to get that to Heather as well. Feel free to just go ahead and do that. Didi, I know that you are in the call. Do you have any comments? Do you have any questions?
Hi, Ezekias. Yes. Thank you, Heather, very much for this information. What I found interesting and a great point that you make is that even though we are talking about, COVID and some industries are starting to open up, and you provide a lot of really good information, it is also important to know that there are other, viruses out there other than that has service providers has worked with. So it's good information. It's a good refresher to know that hopefully, very positively thinking, we will get through this, but we also have to be very aware of other, viruses out there like the flu, TB, and in some cases, I've heard of adult chickenpox that you covered also. So it's always good to remember, we got to be very diligent, we are serving the most vulnerable in our population. And not only do we want to keep our consumers safe, we also want to keep our drivers safe. So thank you for that information.
You're very welcome.
One comment that I have to make is that we should keep or should consider keeping our employee and also our riders limitations on if you feel sick, stay home. If you have a fever, a cough, stay home. Even when we are past this COVID-19, it's just best practice. You might think it's just a cold. It's something that I'm not gonna transmit to anybody, but working in closed environments, being in public transportation, in the vans, being a driver or a passenger on the vehicles that our providers provide the transportation services, it's very important to be mindful of that once we're done with COVID, because the flu is also very bad to our communities and it also causes a lot of damage annually. And it's very important to keep in mind that if you're sick, stay home as much as possible. If you can't stay home, and you're feeling sick, you feel like you have the flu, and you need to take a trip, wear a mask. Maybe you will be done with mask wearing by the next couple of months, next year, but it will be more normal to see people wearing masks. It's just going to be a part of our lives. It just means that you are protecting yourself and others. So I think it's important that we all, as individuals and as organizations and companies, that we keep in mind that for moving forward once we are past COVID-19.
Also, Heather and Mark, we are greatly thankful that you offered your agency's information for our participants, for our stakeholders. We greatly appreciate that. And I really like the comment that, these are the procedures that Gompers has put in place. You always want to check back with your own agencies, but also this is really good information to take back. I know there are still agencies that are going to be ramping up and doing full transportation services again. And these are some comments, suggestions that you can put into place in developing your reopening plan.
Thank you, Didi. Anybody has any other questions? Thank you, Nick, for your comment. We appreciate that you participated. Claudia as well. Thank you so much for your feedback. We are here to provide this presentation in cooperation with our sub-regional mobility managers, with Heather as well. I just want to make sure that everybody has the contact of Mark Butterbush. He is our sub-regional mobility manager for the central area, but if you're not on the central area, you can also feel free to contact him. We also have the sub-regional mobility managers for the East and the West Valley. Here's Mark's contact information if you want more details on how Gompers is taking steps for preventing the spread of COVID-19 and other diseases, or if you have any questions about mobility and transportation and other best practices from Gompers, you can also get in contact with Mark using the information on the screen. Didi, Heather, any other comment, any final remarks?
I again just appreciate you guys allowing me to share this information with you, and I guess knowledge is power. The more we can get it out there, the better. So thank you guys again.
Yes, thank you. I just have one question, Heather. Is Gompers at full capacity now with their transportation program?
We are not at full capacity. We are, opening up slowly. Hopefully, I can't really give a number. Maybe Mark, if you want to share where we're at. I don't have exact numbers where we are, but I do know we're not at full capacity yet. But I will say that I don't mean to be biased because I work here, but we've done an excellent job at reopening up. We haven't had issues, anything like that. So I just really appreciate the procedures that Gompers has put into place. So hopefully we can, reopen fully pretty soon.
Yeah, I can jump in and answer that. We're currently about 1/3 of the capacity we were at and slowly increasing. We have identified a COVID max at each site, which will get us at about 50%. And it'll stay there until things relax. We're going to maintain 6 feet masking for the foreseeable future. There's a lot of unknowns that we want to keep an eye on, like the variants, how long the vaccines last, things like that before we start to fully reopen. So yeah, the goal is about 50%, probably by September.
Oh, wow, good. Good for you. And again, thank you for sharing this information. There are agencies at the point of ramping up their transportation services. So as with all of our trainings and workshops, it's really good to share best practices. And definitely, if you have any comments, or any feedback, we would love to hear that. We want to make our workshops and trainings better and improve, but we want to share the information that you need. Again, you know, you are on the front lines, you are providing these services, and knowledge is power, you know, definitely. But, you know, we also want to be able to keep our consumers and our staff safely. So you guys are making a very conscientious effort in moving forward and opening, as with all of our service providers, and has with the whole transportation world. You know, we have seen some drop off, but it's encouraging for even consumers to hear all the steps our agencies are taking to ensure the safety of providing services again. And that builds the confidence, you know, and utilizing the transportation services, not only with our 5310 programs, but also with our transit programs. You know, it's very encouraging to hear all the steps and being very conscientious of the safety of everybody involved. And I agree with Trixie. You know, thank you for sharing the information with our participants.
Right, so if we have no more questions, I don't see any questions on the chat. We have a last call for questions. If you want to ask anything, you can unmute yourself. And if not, I just want to say thank you so much, Heather, Mark, and everybody who participated today. Thank you for all the work that you do with our community around the Valley, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.